I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
Thank you.
And get out of the way.
All right.
Yes.
So don't be discouraged that I'm starting with slides. We are going to get to fancy ways that you guys can customize things. However, before we dive right in, I want to show you some tools that I use that hopefully you have been using a little bit. Who's ever used Inspect Element? Hopefully I can show you some things on there that you've never seen before that I've actually just become privy to in the past month or two that I use all the time. Before we get into any of that, who is this guy? Right? They give you a guy to speak and then you don't know anything about him. So, a little bit about where I came from. I'm big into alliteration, so please forgive me. I dabbled a bit in 1996. When I was in high school, I took a couple of web design classes, got really into it. Like I said before, tables, TRs, TDs, that was pretty much as far as it went. My first website was a website dedicated to guitar chords. I would actually take a picture of me playing the guitar chords and then make a little graph based on where you put your fingers, and I did all those individually. It's so much easier to do now. But that's exactly where I started. Then I mostly meddled in 2002. I was actually in college dealing with other things. However, design was always kind of big on my mind still. I code conquered in 2005, and by code conquered I mean I actually developed my first site that went live on the internet, because this other one was kind of, it was live, but it was like through GeoCities or one of those ones that has like all the ads way back in the day that nobody liked. So I made my own website and actually made websites for a couple of friends in 2005. Then I finally bit the business bullet. Got a lot of B's in that one. In 2008, when I started DawiDeuce, and it was actually not under the name of DawiDeuce, it was Winter Web Creations, because my last name is Winter. Alliteration. Like I said, you gotta forgive me. And I've kind of been just doing stuff ever since. I WordCamp waddled in 2011. That was the first WordCamp I ever went to. Found a great, wonderful community of people. Really got involved, or tried to get involved in the WordPress scene, and absolutely have loved everything since. Actually being a part of a community has really helped me to take my business forward and get more involved in the community, doing things like this. I took to teaching this. That's another, I think I got 4 in there. Tried to do it a lot, right? In 2012, I teach web design classes over at Cal State Long Beach. I actually have a few of my students here. Wave. Students. Yay. Awesome. So thank you for coming. This will affect your grade. No. Extra credit. Extra credit. Right. So I took to teaching this in 2012, and I'm still doing it. As a matter of fact, I hope that I continue to teach classes in the future. And I commonly contribute now in 2013. What do I mean by that? I go on the forums on WordPress.org a lot. I answer questions. I've submitted a lot of bug reports. I've started to kind of contribute to core in WordPress, which means when a new WordPress version comes out, you actually submitted something that goes into it. So I'm kind of starting to get into that and trying to give back to the community in that kind of way. So that's a little bit about me. My website is DawiDeuce, or dawid.us. It's a weird one, like I said. I'm dave@dawid.us is my email. Please email me with questions if you want. I'm here to help. Blow me up on Twitter, @DawiDeuce. I haven't had any Twitter love for a while, so if you guys are on Twitter, be kind. Only good things. So what are we going to go over tonight? Well, what I have here is a really is underlined, a really quick guide to making your WordPress site look great with CSS. We'll just be covering the basics in this presentation with a hands-on breakout session later on. Actually, I'd like to get into little groups. I'm going to have some of my students who are pretty familiar with some CSS tactics kind of get into little groups with you, and we're going to walk through some of the things that I'm going to show you in the presentation. And hopefully that way we can kind of cater to your needs as well. We might have some CSS3, we might have some other things going on too. So first, we're going to use Inspect Element to make visual changes on your website. Give me hands again. Who's ever used Inspect Element on Firefox or Chrome? Who loves using Inspect Element on Firefox or Chrome? Love it, love it. Wouldn't imagine doing this without it, right? We're going to take a look at that a little bit deeper. And then we're going to show you how to apply those changes to your WordPress site. Because anybody who's ever done that, you make everything look great in inspect element, and then what happens when you want to go to translate it to your site? You're like, oh man, how do I do that? We're actually going to show you some easy ways to translate that code. And then I'm going to give you a whole slew of resources to revisit, not just to visit, but come back to continuously. Like I said, continue to learn. So first, inspect elements. You have to pardon me, I'm old school. I grew up in the days when this guy was really big and hip. So this should look, it's small, I know, but this should look familiar to everybody. So inspect element, okay, so modern browsers have a built-in feature to help you not only locate important CSS element properties, but to go ahead and change some of those properties, find the values that are put into those properties, and change the look of your site. So when I'm talking about properties and values, for example, if you wanted to change the text color, color would be the property, and whatever you wanted your color to be would be the value. So just fancy words for stuff we already know, right? So in Chrome and Firefox, some of you already know this, right-click on any element on your page, and then go and choose Inspect Element in that menu. The page element will highlight to show your corresponding code. I'm actually going to show you an example of this. And then you can test new HTML and CSS right there in the browser without actually having to add any code.
When you say your page, is this a page on your desktop or going on?
This is a live, you can do it on google.com if you want. You can do it on any page out there. Actually, one of the things that I did with my students earlier on, we sat down and we went on google.com and we changed some of the text to slightly more inappropriate Google-esque things. Because it makes it more fun to learn, right? If you make it sort of inappropriate, right? And this I absolutely love because it lets you mess around with your code or with your site without messing things up. Who's ever gone into their code and then been like, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid that I'm going to mess something up. This lets you do whatever you want, and then you can always just refresh the page. It all goes away. It's wonderful. So I have a nice little inspect element demo in Chrome here. It's a little video. It's about a minute long. It's about 2 minutes long. We're going to watch about half of it. I think there's some sound, but I'm going to try my best to be the sound for the guy. So we have the elements panel here. So this is after you hit an element and choose inspect element. You have something that looks kind of like this. They're doing it on the Google site. So you click the element that you want to inspect. You'll see that he's going to choose the search down there. And then he's going to click on anything. And notice how that lit up. And then the code over here shows the corresponding code to what's happening, or to what element you're looking at. So it actually shows you exactly what elements you're needing to change. It's wonderful. So he's going to go ahead and change the font size on a specific element from 15 to 30, and you see that was on the search bar right there. So all this stuff isn't actually uploaded to the web. What he's doing, he's just going through and kind of playing around, making some changes. You can also edit DOM properties. DOM properties is like the width on an input or anything like that. You can go in and change the color of text. You can change many things. And also there's this this box model that shows you the margins and the padding of things on pages. You can actually go in there and change the padding. You see you push the page down a little bit. So I realized that went fast. He explained it a lot better, but we don't have great audio plugged in. And then there's a whole bunch of different tools that we're actually not going to get into because it's a little bit past the scope of what I'll be talking about here. But I know that was fast. There's a link to that on my slide presentation, which I'll make available. So, okay, back to this. So Firefox gives you even more visual help. They actually have a 3D code editor in Firefox. Who's ever seen this? It's a wonderful tool. Who's felt like they were helped by this? Oh, it's one of my favorite things ever. We're actually, is it okay if I open up Firefox and do this? Because this is Chrome, right? There we go. Oh, Apple made me sad. All right. So we're going to go to google.com because it seems like the thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and click Inspect Element, and then down here, you know, something that's not even on here. Or maybe it is. There we go. You click the little 3D element thing and check out what happens. So yeah, it's a cool thing you could show off to your friends, but really what is it showing us? It's showing us that Google uses some really bad tactics when it comes to nesting divs on their site, right? So let's say this was my website and I wanted to figure out how to get to an element, but I knew it was nested inside of other elements. This shows us that we have a search bar or whatever it is that's nested inside of many elements. It's a great visual way to figure out what's going on in your code on your site. So I actually use kind of a combination of both of these tactics in Chrome and Firefox. Usually I have both of them open. And it's, like I said, it's just kind of fun to play around with. Go to your friend's webpage and then show them this and they'll be like it'll be great. What are you doing to my site, man? So we're going to try it out. Actually, we're not going to try it out right now. I'm going to have everybody kind of go through it together because I want to show you the next part of it. But we will have some time to kind of play around with this in our browsers a little bit. So the way you do it is open a browser window, follow along when we get to it. And don't worry, we won't be doing any changes to your live site. As soon as you refresh the page, all the things that we do are going to go away. So you can go crazy. Have a blast. So that's great. We know how to go through and inspect elements, figure out what part of the page does what. But how do you make it stick? How do you make it really work on your page and stay on your page? Well, there's actually a plugin that I've been using to do this on my sites. Actually, I think Adam, was Adam? He gave the talk a couple of months ago about plugins and great plugins to use. Right, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Andy. Andy, right. It started with an A. That's better than I could have hoped to imagine. So Andy talked about plugins. I'm actually going to recommend JETPACK because I know you threw in JETPACK to your presentation. So one of the things that I do is you can easily add CSS to a theme without overriding anything that's built into the theme by using the JETPACK plugin. There's a wonderful module on there that's called Custom CSS. And it allows you to go in and pretty much sort of create a child theme with the CSS, but not have to worry about adding any files or anything. It's absolutely wonderful. Who knows what a child theme is? Okay, good. So a child theme basically is you can add a second theme that is connected to a main theme on your site, and that way you do all of your editing in that. And that way, if the original theme is updated, one, it doesn't override the changes that you did, because it'll update everything. And two, you'll have the benefit of using all those updated changes, but still using your own code, or still using your own customizations. It's really wonderful. So we'll look at that. And then you go in, I'm sorry, this is so small. We go in and we add CSS from our custom, or from our inspect element screen. We had all that stuff over on the right. You can copy anything out of there, add it to this, and then it'll automatically go ahead and overwrite that new theme. It's wonderful. And we'll play around with this. So we're going to try it out. We're going to install JETPACK, and then we're going to activate the custom CSS, and then we're just going to go ahead and save it, and it's going to show everything nice and right. So resources to revisit. I'm just going to go through these really fast. And hopefully you'll come back to these resources because they've been infinitely valuable to me.
You said these would be listed in this?
Yes, actually, if you go to slid.es/Dawidus, D-A-U-I-D-U-S, I'll post this as well. I know it's very tricky spelling. My slides are available. Actually, I did all my slides just using HTML and CSS. So to show you, because I'm talking about CSS, it's wonderful. I even do my slides in that because I sort of hate myself a tiny bit. So we have some beginner, intermediate, and advanced kind of tutorials and sites that I like to share with my students and friends as well. We have one of them, CSS from the ground up. It's the most helpful site that I've found. It actually has a whole bunch of tutorials and explains how CSS works, how it works, what an H1 tag is, It's a wonderful, easy tutorial that anybody can access. The Doc Hub CSS actually is a list of all the CSS attributes on the left side. You click on one of them, it tells you what it does on the right side. It's just a really simple looking site, but it's great. W3C schools, who's the W3C? Greg, you're not the W3C. Who's the W3C?
What's that?
Who's the W3C? What's the W3C? The World Wide Web Consortium. What do they do?
Make the rules.
They make the rules. They set standards on the web. Why is this an invaluable resource? Because it's always up to date based on the modern web standards. If you want to learn CSS and learn it well, you go to the people who make the web, or the people who set the rules. The W3C is the people who set the rules, so that's a great resource. And then Style Shout has tons of good stuff. You can get lost easily, but kind of look through. We're going to actually look through some of these resources too while we're playing with our CSS a little bit. Some intermediate resources when you dive in a little bit deeper. CSS tricks. Chris Coyer is a very wonderful developer who has given back plenty to the WordPress community. He pretty much has a site sort of dedicated to CSS, but there's a lot of other fun stuff on there too. It's a great resource. The CSS Zen Garden, it's one of my favorites. Each page loads exactly the same HTML, and then you click on a link and then it loads different CSS, and you wouldn't even imagine how different those pages look. It's great for inspiration for web designers. And this 456 Berea Street, it's pretty boring looking, but it has a lot of great tutorials for intermediate CSS stuff. And then we have advanced, and once you reach this point, you're at the point of no return with CSS and HTML. CSS specificity. Thank you. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Right? So not all CSS is created equal. What is CSS specificity? I can't speak. What is specificity on the web? Anybody know what this means? It's a really confusing way to say that some elements in CSS override automatically other elements in CSS. This is a great resource to tell you which ones automatically override other things. Sometimes it's position elements, sometimes it's just the default elements out of the box. Great resource for that, because sometimes that's kind of tricky. Animate.css, another wonderful one. It's kind of like a jQuery plugin with a whole bunch of CSS. You just add a class to your element, and it does a whole bunch of animations for you. It's great. And then processor.com. Who's ever heard of less? Yeah, this kind of explains all that and helps you with that. It also allows you to put in a whole bunch of CSS, hit a button, it compresses it, takes everything that's common, puts them together. It's a wonderful resource. I realize that's a lot of stuff.
What is less?
Less is a framework. It's a sort of like object-oriented CSS. So if you know how object-oriented languages work, you have a value and then a function, and you can save strings and variables and pass them back and forth. In CSS, generally it doesn't work that way. You have to rewrite everything. Unless you can, for example, if I had a certain color red that I wanted an element to be, I could save that red as a string variable and then call it back in my CSS stuff. And then when you publish it on the web, the processor takes that, makes it into regular CSS again. So for example, if you wanted to use the same red color 58 times, you wouldn't have to actually remember them all. It makes it really great because if you want to change that color, you do it once and not 58 times. It's really a great resource. So with CSS, a little bit goes a long way. Ask my friend Tubby, he knows. Just a little bit of decoration can really change your whole world around and go a long way. That's like the best thing ever, right? I kind of want to do that to my dog, but I love my dog, so I'm not going to do that to them. I know. It's like a terrible thing. However, be careful, because once you jump into the fire, sometimes it sucks. Sometimes the fire burns back. So kind of, we'll take our time through it. And then, of course, I need an Apu slide. So my slideshow is actually pretty short. I did it on purpose because I want to get hands-on with this stuff. I could sit up here and talk at you the whole night, and you probably won't learn half as much as if you sit down together and actually dive into some of this code together. So who already has a WordPress theme installed and is looking to change some things like a sidebar, background colors, textures, things like that? What I'd like you to do is kind of look around, keep your hands up, get an eye on those people. Those are your friends for the night. We're going to kind of go into a group with you guys. Who hasn't installed WordPress yet and they're looking to do that and set up a theme? You guys have a computer? It's okay. I'll help you out. Anybody else in that boat? We'll all get together as a group. Who is a little bit more advanced and looking to do like CSS3 stuff on their site to make it kind of more fun? Right? What else are you guys looking to do with your CSS? Is there anything in particular that you're looking to change with CSS?
I'm the one with the pictures that I'm trying to put some sidebars.
Oh, right. Actually, I'm not even sure that's a CSS thing, but I can definitely help you look. I think it might be thumbnail sizes in WordPress. Right.
I'm just trying, I guess, to figure out what the best theme. If I just want to, like, if I have a client that says, "Hey, I want to have like a WordPress on my site, like the best minimalist theme to start with," and
Okay.
work from there.
Bingo. Anybody else? Awesome. Friends for the night. Actually, I have some really good suggestions, and I know Greg does as well with that.
What about media queries and breakpoints for WordPress?
Media queries and breakpoints with WordPress. If you choose the right theme, you already have the media queries and breakpoints set up. I'm actually I love that stuff. So I can have a lot to offer. Oh yeah, you can totally build it right in. You just include those CSS media queries right in your CSS file. Right. And I can help you find some resources for that. You have your hand up? Somebody over here have their hand up? Nope. So let's go ahead, and I realize that was a lot of groups, but kind of look around and get into small groups. And I'm going to actually come around and we're going to get hands-on with this stuff. Really, I feel like that's the best way that I can really lend some of my help to you. So